Hey world, I'm Christine at C2E2 and I'm here with ComicsVerse. I'm here with the talented Betsy Peterschmidt. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy day to talk with us.
My pleasure.
How is Chicago treating you so far?
It's great. I love the Midwest. I'm from Minnesota originally, so it's nice to be back in my homeland.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So can you begin by introducing yourself and a little bit about your current projects that you're working on?
For sure. So I am based in New York, work mostly in watercolors, also do some digital as well. I work largely in graphic novels. I'm working on a major project right now called Boys with Wings, which I've been working on for the last 6 years, all in watercolor. It's been a personal project of mine that I've done on the side, and it's all about learning how to fly from the ground up. So that's what this banner is of. Another project I'm working on that I don't have a book for yet because that hasn't been made yet is called 7 Easy Steps, and it's all about the stages of grief and how grief is a creature of many forms, and it's all told through the lens of an 8-year-old, of the eyes of an 8-year-old boy.
Wow.
So stay tuned, there should be more of that soon.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
So what was the inspiration behind Boys with Wings?
It's a good question. Honestly, it was kind of a lot of things. I saw How to Train Your Dragon in high school, and that movie just like changed me as a human. I also really love dissecting things, how they work. I've always been a fan of space flight and mechanical flight, how things function, how you can create machines that will take off from the ground. I think that's amazing, and I wanted to sort of illustrate that awe and that wonder. And it's, even though it's in a fantasy setting, it's still grounded in reality.
Right.
So, this world has dragons, this world has 2 moons, a purple sky, it's not our world.
Right.
But it's still just as difficult to get off the ground.
So are you a fan of steampunk by any chance?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, because what you were talking about kind of reminds me of
Yes.
steampunk, like that
For sure.
that traveling back to a different age, but trying to like make everything a mechanical function.
Right, kind of re-envisioning an era in a different light.
Yeah.
So it's good. It's interesting you ask that question because the main flying machine that they operate in this story is an ornithopter, which is a flying machine that flies by flapping its wings like a bird. So I don't know if you could see this, but here's the ornithopter at the bottom. And it's been a really fun process because I designed it to be based off of like dragon aeronautics, and so how would the people of this world see a flying machine? Because their surroundings are much different than ours. And that's been one of the most challenging but also one of the most exciting processes with Boys with Wings, and also making like the dragons as scientific as possible. Like I based their skeleton off of, I took like a bird skeleton and a horse skeleton and I kind of fused them together, and like how would it actually work, if this dragon existed in our world?
Yeah, so it seems like you're really focused on the mechanics, like
Yes.
making things realistic even though they're based in a fantasy setting.
Yes, definitely.
Can you talk about a little bit where this love of fantasy, but also this love of like basically engineering comes from?
I'm a big fan of the genre magical realism myself. Magical realism is a specific genre of fantasy where it's based in reality, but there's certain elements of fantasy. So the movie Amélie, the French film, is an example of magical realism. So is Big Fish. That's magical realism. So, any example of that, I'm super, super into that. And 7 Easy Steps follows that dynamic as well, because it's you're following this boy's journey. He's grieving the death of his brother, and he's in reality. He's in a hospital with his parents, and all these normal things are going on around him. But then when he falls asleep, he enters this spirit world, and the bridge between the real world and the spirit world is left a little ambiguous. Is it real? Is it not? Is it a dream? You kind of leave that open to the reader. And I really like the idea of sort of inventing this kind of new form of fantasy that's different from your typical high fantasy like Lord of the Rings, but still has elements that are not ordinary in our world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, it totally makes sense because, like, when we read fantasy, we want it to be believable, essentially, right? Like, even though it's not based in our world, we want to feel like there's some rules or mechanics behind it. Like, it is its own self-contained universe.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I know that you work a lot in children's book, and you said before that Dr. Seuss was your first children's book you ever read.
Yes, it was Green Eggs and Ham.
Yes, I mean, I think that's everybody's first book.
Yes, that was my first one.
What are some of your other favorite children's book, and why are you attracted to this medium?
Well, I'm a big fan of Tasha Tudor. She's not as mainstream as some of the other children's book illustrators and authors like Marie Sendak or Dr. Seuss or Oliver Jeffers. Tasha Tudor does a lot of watercolor illustrations, and she's done the book Corgiville Fair. I don't know if you're a fan of corgis. Well, you will be after you read these books because they're amazing. She does these beautiful, semi-realistic. It's kind of like magical realism because it's it's sort of based in a reality, but all of the citizens are corgis and they walk upright. They got their little stumpy legs. They wear cardigans and vests.
I feel like that's made for our generation.
Oh, it's perfect.
Like,
yeah,
our generation.
I want to be her too because I saw a documentary about her and she just like lives in a cottage in the woods and has goats and like a garden and walks around barefoot and like paints corgis all day.
That is literally my fantasy. Like, do you remember the movie Matilda?
Yes.
Where the teacher, she lived in that cottage and
Miss Honey.
That's literally was my dream house for like 10 years.
Oh, it's still my dream house.
I mean, it is my dream house, but I think now I'm like so used to modern luxuries and conveniences I like couldn't actually like deal with it. Like, she didn't have an electric kettle. She actually like boiled her water.
And I remember in the book she had to sleep on the floor, and she's like, "It's good for your back," and I'm like, "No."
Yeah, I was like, I sleep on those like wooden beds in China, and my God, my back hurts.
It just kills you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, are there any current genres of art or animation that are current obsessions with yours outside of just fantasy?
Outside of just fantasy, I've always wanted to work at Pixar just because, not so much of the 3D element, but more because they're so incredible at storytelling. Like, we were talking about this yesterday about Inside Out, and how here we're all bawling our eyes out because, a kid forgets about their imaginary friend. The concept itself is like, okay, whatever, but like in that movie, fully grown adults are sobbing because you're so invested in these characters.
And it's like so relatable. Like, you had that imaginary friend.
You had that experience, exactly. And that's what I really respect about Pixar in particular. I know that their mission is to really tell a story in the most elaborate but simple way possible.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I've been drawn to more. It's a little more general than like specific, genres. It's just, I'm very attracted to successful storytelling.
You just like a good story, but isn't that
I like a good story, and
artist and creator's dream?
Yeah, exactly. and I think the fact that it's fantasy, the fact that it's sci-fi, the fact that it's whatever genre shouldn't at all detach from a good story. It should still be a good story regardless.
Exactly.
So, which is why Boys with Wings is grounded in reality. That felt right with the story, and I think makes it stronger. And that's just kind of what my mission statement is.
Great, awesome. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, but thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. Once again, I'm Christine Dawn with ComicsVerse. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, subscribe to ComicsVerse on YouTube, and visit comicsverse.com for more in-depth analysis and new content daily. You can also follow us at ComicsVerse on Twitter and check us out on Facebook and Tumblr. Thank you once again, Betsy, for your time. All right, until next time, thank you very much.